Have you ever wanted to learn Jingle Bells? Well, have I got news for you. This video covers everything from the beginner who doesn't even know any notes on the piano, all the way up to an advanced player who needs to play 500 notes to make Jingle Bells sound impressive. Your challenge is to find a level that suits you best, that you're going to be able to learn before Christmas and impress your friends and family. To help you along the way, I've put all of the time codes into the description so you can jump along to any particular level that you want to learn and be there straight away. But if you want to ease yourself into it, start from level 1 and you'll be able to learn it step by step all the way through to level 10. Of course, this video is a tutorial on the 10 levels of Jingle Bells I released recently, so if you haven't seen that yet, the link is in the description. But that's enough talking from me, let's get started on level 1 of Jingle Bells. So, of course, beginning at level 1, we are really going to step back to basics so that even if you don't know how to play the piano, you will be able to play this piece, or at least the first part of it, no problem. And level 1 begins just with the right hand, just with our right hand just here. So we find the middle of the piano, you find the two notes that are in that middle of the piano, and then the one in the middle of that is D, the one to the left of that is C. And so C is where we're going to be putting our thumb, and the rest of our fingers follow suit on the white notes above it, C, D, E, F, G. These are the only notes we're going to be using to play Jingle Bells, so it should be pretty easy for us to get it going. So, using these fingers, and I would argue against just using the one finger, you could play it like that, but it doesn't look as good. Using those fingers, we want to do 3 notes beginning on E, and that's our third finger. That's our first bit of Jingle Bells. We're going to repeat that again, third finger, E. Now we're going to move up to our little finger so we can play the G. So it's going to go E, G. And then down for C, so 3, 5, 1, and then 2, 3 to get the rest of that little melody, D, E. So that went E, G, C, D, E. And if we look at what we've got so far, we've got 3 E's with our third finger, and again. Then you go E, up to G, C, D, E, okay? With me so far? If you need to repeat the video, of course, just go back. Nice keyboard shortcut if you're on a computer is pressing J to go backwards like 10 seconds and L to go forwards like 10 seconds. It's quite quick for learning something. So that's the start of it, of course, and you can speed it up. Now moving on to the next part, we've got our F's with our forefinger, another 3 of those, and then F, F, E, E. So forefinger to third finger. So that was F, 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 E, E. A few more E's, E, 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 3 of them, and then 2 D's. So that's sort of part of that phrase. So you got F, 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 E, 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 D, D. And then it goes E, D, up to G. If that makes sense, you just do it a few times and imagine the melody as you're playing it. Okay, with me so far? So then if we grab the bit from the start, it should sound like this. And it's going to take you time to warm up to that. Start it nice and slow and build it up over time. Don't rush it, let your fingers work out the notes. And once you've got it, you'll be able to move on to the later levels so much easier. So let's continue. It repeats, of course, Jingle Bells. And then we get a slight difference here. F, 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 E, 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 E. And then before we go to the D's, we're going to instead jump up to the G. With our 5th finger, down to F with our 4th, and then D with our 2nd, and then thumb with our C. So what we played there was jumping up to the G with our little finger, with 2 of those, 1 with the F on our 4th finger, 1 with the D with our 2nd finger, and then the thumb. So we've got the first bit, I'll whiz through it. The rhythms were alright, but let's move on. And then second bit. And then instead of moving down, we go up to the G, F, D, C. And that is level 1 of Jingle Bells. So let's move on to level 2. This is where the left hand comes in. Now, remember exactly what you did in the right hand. You've got to learn that enough whereby you don't need to concentrate on it as much. We want to get the left hand involved now, which means you've got to be confident with something else so that you can move on and focus on the new thing that's being added. So, in the left hand, for this first part, we want basically the same pattern that we've got up here, C, D, E, F, G, but lower down. And that's going to be our little finger on C, and this is called an octave lower. So, for the first part, we want a C with our little finger. And you can feel it's on the beat every bar. It's every 2 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's when our left hand comes in. Just with the C's to begin with. And with the right hand. Nice and easy. When we go up to the F in our right hand, we go up to the F in the left hand. And then when we come down to the E in the right hand, with an extra F. And in fact, I'll tell you what, when we come back from that F, we're actually going to play one more F when we hit the C in the left hand. Sort of clashes a bit, but then you fall onto E and it resolves it, so it sounds nice. And then when we get down to the D in the right hand, I wouldn't do it like that. When we get to the D in the right, oh yeah, I would. It's the same thing where you've rested, say, on that dodgy note. And we're going to do the same with the G in the left hand and the E in the right. Sort of hold it and then land on it. So let me explain this a little bit clearer again. We've got the first bit, that should be nice and simple. Just with the C's in the left. When we go to the F, we go to the F in the left hand. And then with an extra F, when we go to the C in the left hand, we resolve onto the E. And with an extra E in the right hand, we play the G in the left hand and resolve onto the D before playing it once more. So that's the first half. And I'll play it. Now we got the second half. Remember, it changes slightly on that second time round, and it should sound like this. So far, so good. It's all the same. And then we're going to go to the G in the left hand like we did before, but in the right hand, we've moved up for the 2 Gs, F, which you could do with an F in the left hand, but I wouldn't do it. And then a D, and then a C in the left hand. So G, G, F, D, C, and then when we hit the C in the right, we hit the C in the left. Okay, so I'll play that second version again. Always the same at the start. That wasn't the second version, that was the first, but we'll continue. And this is where it changes up to the Gs, and then F, D, C. And that is level 2. Okay, now level 3 is the same premise. We've got the same melody in the right hand. Again, it hasn't changed, which means that if you know it confidently, and you can know it sort of while distracted and looking at something else, then you can probably start to work on level 3 with the left hand as well. So remember what we were doing with our little finger on the C? Well, now we're just going to add a G with our thumb at the same time. This adds a bit of a fuller sound, and it's going to make the whole song sound a bit richer. So let's get the first bit. Same rhythm. Now, instead of playing an F for the next part with the F in the right hand, we're going to play a C and an A. Sounds quite nice. It's because it makes up a chord, and we'll get onto that later, but for now, let's stick to that. C and the A. We've actually moved our thumb a little bit hard to be able to make that work. And then when we come down to that E, remember when we clashed with the F, we're going to go back to the C and G shape that we had at the start of this level. And then when we get to the E that hangs on in the G section, if you remember from level 2, do we want to do that? Yeah, I think we do. We're going to play G and D in the left hand. Okay, so I'm going to go through that once more. Again, it always sounds confusing to begin with, but we break it down and we play it again. C and a G in the left. C and the A in the left. and then back to C and a G in the left, and then a D and a G in the left. Yeah. Now on to the next part of it, of course. We've got the same repeating thing. And to finish off, we've got the G in the right hand, of course, which means a G and a D in the left, F, D, and then back to C, with C and a G in the left hand. I won't play through that again. Hopefully that all makes sense. It's nice and simple so far. Right, what happens in level 4? I've got my notes here. Level 4, 2 notes in the right hand, 2 notes in the left, which means when we play the left hand, it's all going to be the same. So that's the one that now you want to make sure you've remembered really closely in your head. And the right hand is now going to add notes lower than the melody. So if this is my starting note, I'm now going to add something below it to fill it up a bit more. So when we start, instead of just doing E, 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 we're going to go C and E. And then C and E, C and G, C just on its own, and then C and D, clashes a bit, but you're not on it for very long, C and E. So you can sort of follow, that melody is still on the top, but we're just covering it up with a C underneath. It sort of fills it out. It's similar to what the left hand's doing, but it's combining it all together. Nice. So with the left hand, yeah, that works. And then we get to the F, which of course would be, which in the left hand is for C and the A, and in the right hand we're going to do C and the F. Sounds quite nice. And then we hang on that F when the left hand goes to the C and G, as we know. And of course we're still continuing with that C and the thumb. And then when we get to the D and the G in the left hand, it's not that. Oh, we do that. I forget it every time. So when we get to, where were we? Let's remind ourselves. We had the E's and the C's to start. C and the G. Just filling it all up. If in doubt, play the melody, add a C in the bass. And in the left hand, when we got to the F section, we had the C and the A and the C and the F. And then we moved to C and the G and the C and the E. And then when we get to the G part, let's go the same thing in the left hand as we already know, D and G. Play the C and the E to begin with, that's our clashy bit. But now we move down, so we've had 1 and 3 on C and E. Now we're going 1 and 2 with B and D. Up to D and G with 2 and 5. So I'll play that again. And remember, don't forget, this is a video, you can stop it, rewind it, play it. You can even slow it down if you need to, but hopefully you're getting the gist of it. So if I play the full thing for that first section, it should sound like this. Or, I think that's what I was meant to be going for. Doesn't matter, still sounds quite nice. Then we get the second part. Ignore that bum note. It's all been the same so far until we get to the last bit where we're going up with a little finger to G, of course, but now we're going to include the D with our second finger. Basically mirroring what the left hand's doing. D and the F in the right hand. Maybe B and D next. Sounds quite nice, let's do that. And then C and E, or just for C. C and E sounds weird. I'll do that again. So when we get to that last part, where we're going to the G in the right hand, copy the left, then D and the F, clashes a bit, but we're not on it for very long. B and D, and then finally, just a simple C on its own to finish off the piece. So that was level 4. It's 2 notes in the left hand, 2 notes in the right. If you can play level 3, get your left hand confident, and then it's just a case of learning the additional notes for level 4 in the right hand. With me? Cool. Okay, level 5, what are we on to? Moving bass line. Okay, so now remember the right hand that you learned from level 4. Nice and simple. And in the left hand, that's where the complexity starts to come in. This is really stepping it up now. So this moving bass line sounds like this. At least I think it does. And we've got to time that with the right hand. And you can fill it up with a bit of sustain pedal as well. That's going to make it sound bigger. But for the purposes of this lesson, I'm going to keep it really simple and not use the sustain pedal to muddy it up. So in the left hand, we had our hand an octave lower than the right to begin with. Now we're going an octave lower again and stretching it out. So we've got a C, a G, and a C. That is our starting chord, which is nice and easy. I'm going to show you the other two chords that we're going to need to make it sort of flow a bit smoother. When we get to the F, we're going to want to move our hand in the exact same shape, same position, and shuffle it up to the F. And then back down to the C. And then when we'd get to a G shape that we'd normally play in the left hand, we've got to move that exact same shape and the same spacing up to a G, which is G, D, and G, and then you end up back at C, G, and C. And the F1 was F, C, and F if I didn't say that. So, the pattern goes like this. Sounds pretty good. And the nice thing about it is the left hand matches exactly with the right hand all of the time. So you can play it really slowly, or even slow if you want, and work on that timing so that you're confident with exactly where your left hand's going and your right. And if you can play at this sort of speed, then you can certainly speed it up because it's actually quite challenging. So I'll play the first half again. And you might have noticed my thumb got lazy and decided to stay on the C while the left hand was playing the G. It should have gone, and it did. Sounds weird on its own, but it kind of worked with the left hand. So if you're lazy, you could do that, but try and keep it with a bit of movement. Then of course we get to the second part of the song. All the same as at the start. Let's get to the point where I can't talk over myself. Pretend that went smoothly, and then, and of course we're at the bit where a little finger on the right hand goes to the G, and going down to the F. I'd say the D is on its own, don't worry about the left hand there. Oh no, do worry about the left hand, make it go down. And you might want to take that phrase and just loop it a few times, just to get it stuck in your head and you get that muscle memory, and then move your left hand back down to C to finish off the piece. So I will play the full version of this just so you get a bit of an idea with the pedal too. Oh, and if you want to use the pedal, basically just lift it up and put it down every single time the left hand changes. If the left hand changes and you don't lift it up, that is going to create a really sort of muddy sound and it's not going to work for the rest of the song. So here we go. Cheated, I played 3 notes in the right hand. That's coming up next, but that was level 5. I'm losing track already. Right, level 6. Level 6 is the same moving bass line. Do you notice a pattern? Every time we go to a new level, something remains the same and something improves, or something becomes more challenging. Depends on which way you want to look at it. So now, we keep that moving bass line. I'm fairly sure, yes. And in the right hand, we're now adding 3 notes. That stays the same. So, where we were playing C and E before, we still want to keep that top note, that melody, as the highest note possible. In any song that you're listening to that might have lyrics in, the person singing is normally sort of, they're the loudest, but also they're singing the top line of whatever's going on underneath, because that's the easiest thing to hear. So when we're adding 3 notes, we want to make sure those 3 notes exist, one being the melody and the other 2 being below it. So we had the E and the C before with 1 and 3. Now we want it as a full chord with 1, 3 and 5, G, C and E. And you can see how it's so much fuller, and I'll get rid of the pedal because that's cheating. Then we want to move up. So you can see I've swapped from my little finger on here, which was easy. Swapped it to the fourth finger to give my little finger some room. Because now I want G, C, G to fill it out and keep with those 3 notes. G and C, that remains just with 2 notes because it's too much to just jump all the way down. And even the rest of it is sort of 2 notes as well. You could end up on that E as G, C and E, but it goes like this again. So we had 1, 3 and 5 on G, C and E. Swap that 4 finger in, and in fact I got my second finger involved as well. Move up to the little finger on G with a G, C and G. Back down to G, C, G and C just with the 2 fingers. G and D just with 2 fingers, and then if you're feeling quick with your movements, 3 notes for G, C and E. So with the left hand. Please don't copy my finger positions when I perform it, because I change every single time. It's the benefit of knowing what I'm doing, but also a problem because when it means I'm playing faster and faster, I change what I'm doing and therefore it takes me longer to play and therefore it goes wrong. So don't do what I'm doing. Practice what I preach. Don't do as I do. That's 2 things modelled up. Where am I? 1 to the F section. So that is the C and the F that we were talking about before, with an added A underneath, with 1, 2 and 5. Same left hand. Added chord when we go back to the C in the left hand, of course. Back to G and C. And now we're at the part where we've got, which we played before as this. And now we're going to play as this, with G, B and E. And the left hand's going to come in and it's going to be a little challenging because it's going to go. In fact, you've got to basically battle between the left finger playing the G and your right hand. Left hand playing the G and your right hand playing the G. What is it? Oh, that's the chord we need at the end. So we got the G and B and the E, moving up to B, D and G. You might want to practice that to get the transition as smooth as possible. Okay? And the left hand was. Now we're back to the start, of course. So let's play that first phrase. Yeah, a bit messy, but let's keep on going because we've got the second phrase where it changes. Now we're moving up, remember that this would be where in the first version it went, but now we're moving up to the G, and we can do B, D and G, B, D and F, B and D, and then jumping down to probably E, G and C for the final bit. So with the left hand involved. So I'll play that second half, here we go. I almost forgot it was the second half, you might notice the pause there. But that is the end of level 6. On to level 7. Level 7 is the same in the right hand. Yeah, the pattern continues. Exactly the same in the right hand, so if you remember how that goes, if you learn it confidently, then you should be all right to move on to level 7. Now, level 7 is where the left hand changes up. It's now an advanced moving bass line. It's not just, it's actually a little bit more challenging. It moves up to include a few more notes. It sounds a bit richer, it colours in the chord a little bit more. You can play this 2 ways. I'm probably going to change the way I play it every single time, but in the left hand you either go C, G, C with let's say 5, 2 and 1, then D, E with 2 and 1 and reverse it, back down again. That's quite nice because you're always using the same fingers, the second and the thumb always sort of alternate at the top. Or you could play it where you go 5, same notes, 5, 3, 2, 1, 2. find whatever feels comfortable. I think the first one's probably more likely to be accurate because of the smaller gap between the first and second finger. So that's the pattern you want to play and get confident with before you even try adding in the right hand. And of course, when we move up to the F, it's the same pattern, just at the F. So F, C, F, G, A, G, F, C, F. Quite pleased I got that. Back to the C. And then we've got the G moving up again, G, D, G, A, B, A, G, D. So it's always the same shape, but it only depends, same shape and same distance between the notes, but it only depends on what was your first note that the little finger was playing, and you're back at C. Okay, so with the right hand, let's play the first one. Sounds nice and full, I'm not even playing the sustain pedal. Yes, okay, so I played this, when I originally wrote this, in fact, the pattern played for a lot longer. I think it was something like a much slower piece, and you could play it that way. But my faster version means that actually when we get to the F, and maybe when we get to the G, we don't even need all the notes. So when we get to the F part, F, C, F, G, that's all you need, because actually you run out of time. And you're already moving back down to the C. So I'll play it again and explain it a bit more. That's a nice easy starting point. Then we get to the F. And then once we've hit that G, we're going to play one more chord in the right hand before playing the same chord again with the C in the left. See how that works? Because there's just not enough time to do the full pattern in the left hand for the F. And now we're getting to the G section in the left, which will go. How do I play this? I've got a feeling I don't do the advanced pattern in the actual video. I reckon I just go back to the basic one just for the G. Because otherwise you're just in such a clash, it's a mess. So for now, just do that. And if you spot me doing it properly in the main video, see if you can work out how I do it and tell me. Anyways, let's go from the F because that makes sense. Now I'm doing it the advanced way. F again. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so that's the first part, obviously without the C again, so now we're going to go into the second part. Now this is where the C only gets a little bit. So stop there, and then we're going to move up, of course, to the, and the left hand has to come with us. And then maybe we hit the A. No, we don't hit the A, we go back to D. That sounds better. And then the final chord to finish. So let's see if we can play it all together with the pedal. So in that time, the left hand sounded quite nice. I kept on going up instead of going down again. So you mix and match. It's still an advanced moving bass line with three notes in the left hand, 3 notes in the right hand. What? No. Advanced moving bass line, 3 notes in the right hand. It's still that, but it's up to your interpretation how you're going to make it work. Yeah, you improvise around it. It's how I started creating all of the levels. You just improvise and improvise and improvise and improvise and expand and see where it goes. Because as you might have seen in the video, it gets a little bit crazy. I'm not even sure if I know how to play them again, but I'll try and show you. So we're on to level 8. Classic, left hand stays the same, right hand is now up to 4 notes rather than 3. And we've moved it all an octave higher, so it's everything you've already been playing around this middle part, but now it's an octave higher up the piano. like this. So we've got not only G, C and E, but we've added a lower note as well. When we get up to there, G, C, E, G. Basically, every melody note you've got at the top, you're also playing at the bottom. You could practice it with octaves. Pretty much. Let me test that theory. Apart from when I do that. So ignore the theory. So when we go, you got the chord, and then we don't move to have 4 notes every time for this bit. We just play what we did, I think, in the level before. In fact, it might even be less. And then we go to the 4 notes for the F chord, which is F, A, C, and F. And back to the same chord we played earlier. And now we're on to the G chord in the left hand, which would be... Again, basic in the left. And here, if you can stretch it, D up to E, because it sort of resolves itself. And then up to G as a full chord, G, B, D, and G. So I'll play that first part. Pretend that didn't happen. Oh, I did something funky there. So my little finger and my thumb match each other and pivot around the G and the B. That's actually quite an easy way of playing it. And my left hand went advanced with the melody. Who knew? But we continue into the second part. And then moving up to the full one with G, B, D, and G. So keep everything the same in the bottom half of your right hand until you get to this chord. G, G, F, D, and then moving down to C, E, G, and C. And then with the left. So let's see if we can do the whole thing. It's probably going to go horribly wrong. The pedal really makes a difference with this because there's so much jumping. Brain breaking. Yeah, it takes me a few attempts to get it right first time, but you might understand that going from level 1 up to wherever I am now might cause my brain to have a moment. Let's keep on forcing it to have a moment by changing up completely, and we go to the blues version of jazz for blues version of Jingle Bells, essentially jazz, for level 9. Right, level 9, I'm going to pretend this isn't an entirely different day and my cat didn't run across the piano, run across my desk and then knock a glass of water over, but we're going to move on. This is the jazz version, which means you can forget everything you've learned so far because it's completely different to the styles of anything in any previous level. However, of course, the melody is still there. So, get rid of this cable. In the right hand, we've got the top note being the melody, of course, and we've got that same G, C, E shape that we've seen before. But now we've got a B flat involved, which makes it far more jazzy. It's called a 7th chord. In the left hand, we've got a walking bass line. This is really common in like 12-bar blues, and it's simply made of C, E, G, A, B flats, and coming back down again. So that's 5, 3, 2, 1, and then your second finger goes over the top. And then we come back down again. So up and down, and you get that pattern, which sounds pretty good. So again, that's C, E, G, A, B flat, and then come back down again. That same shape, we're going to shuffle up to the F. Exactly the same distance apart for the notes, but starting on F, and then going to A, C, D, E flat, and coming back down. And then we've got the C one. And then finally for the G, it's G, B, D, E, F, E, D, B. So it's the same pattern, but because we don't have a blank note to move up to, we go to the F, and then you could have the F there, and then you're back to C. So if you learn those sort of 3 positions for the 12-bar blues, then you're pretty much covered to then start working on the right hand. So the rhythm goes like this. Sort of notice the jingle bells coming through there. And so we get it on the first beat, C and the chord together, so C in the left hand plus the chord. Wait. Yeah, so together, and then the next note in the left hand is on its own. And then the right hand comes in between the E and the G. So you go like that. That gets you your main rhythm that's going to sort of be recurring throughout this entire level. And then it comes back together on the A. So you might want to do that a few times just to get it stuck in your head. So that's the start, nice and easy. And then when we get to the... all of that has that same syncopated feel. See if you can copy what I did, because it's really difficult to try and describe exactly how that all lines up. But basically, at the bottom of my hand, in the right hand, we've got the G and the B flat always playing. And it's the matter of my 3rd, 4th and 5th finger to be able to go around and get that melody covered on the top of my hand. I'm basically splitting up, saying, right, these 2 fingers are the chord and these 3 fingers are the melody. See how that works? So if I play that with the left hand, and it should all come back together. It starts at the same time and finishes at the end at the same time on the C. So if I play that with the start, it sounds like this. Okay, now when the left hand continues past that point to continue with the pattern, the right hand plays a few chords. So it's the same G, B flat, C and E that we had before, but we're going to play it an octave higher. Then we're going to drop the E from the top and play that below. So it's still the same pattern, it's still G, B flat, C and E, but it's now G, B flat, C and E. And then we jump it down once more to get G, B flat, C and E down here, so it goes. Sort of breaks up the part that goes from the C section to the F section. So it goes there. Just adds a little bit of flair. And then when we move to the F, of course the left hand is continuing the same pattern, same distance apart of the notes. We know this already. While the right hand continues with that same syncopated rhythm. He says, since he's forgotten how to play Jingle Bells, I'm going to have to play it. That's it. So we got... and then the left hand moves down immediately to the C. And of course we've got that clashy F at the same time as the C to begin with. And then when we get to the G, so the left hand's going to jump up. I think this part was the same thing that we had in level 8. So that's with the left hand. With that same syncopated feel. And finally at the top, I jump up an octave to get B, D and G. Again, just as a little bit of decoration over the top. So if I play the first half of Jingle Bells, it sounds like this. See how that comes in just as a little bit offbeat right at the end and introduces the next section of Jingle Bells. So speaking of which, of course we've got the repeats, but a slight change. Normally when we play the start, we just hold down the chord, but instead we're going to jump up an octave in that gap where we usually hold the chord and do a little tremolo an octave higher. Or at least try to. Sounds cool. When it blends in with the left hand, you can't hear the dodgy notes. See how that fills in the gap? And then we've got the same pattern from before. And now instead of the pattern being here where we drop those chords down, again, the little bit of filler, instead of being there, let's play an octave higher. Because now everything's moving up an octave. So to get to that point, it would be... Already feels like it's moved on just because it's gone an octave higher. Now we continue with the F section an octave higher. Now when we get to the last bit, that classic part, we've got to go... do I do this? Yeah, let's do that. I don't know if I do that in the video, but it sounds pretty good. So we've got the G chord, then the F chord, but when we get to that F, so G, B, D, G, when we get to the F, it's going to be A, C, E flat and F. That's part of the jazzy sort of style again. See how that goes? A, C, F, and then sort of falling onto that E flat. And that rounds up the slightly jazzy style of Jingle Bells. So with the left hand, you get half of a G, and then half of the F, and then back to C. So, see how that works? Hopefully you got that, but I'll explain it once more just in case. So we had the first half of Jingle Bells, hopefully you got that bit. The second half, we had the tremolo. Then we moved the filler an octave higher. Then we continue at F an octave higher. And then we get to the final bit, we move to the G in the left hand, B, D and G in the right, to A, C and F before resting on the E flat, and then back to E, G, B flat and C. So finish off the piece. And I just do a couple of octave Cs to round off the level. That is the jazzy blues version of Jingle Bells. So level 10 is where the nightmares happen, and hopefully I can remember how the rhythm goes immediately. I think it's something like this. That's it, I've got it. It's always a challenge. So we start with the octave and we go E, G, E. Okay? That's sort of the basic premise of where this sort of pattern and filler comes in. So it goes E, G, E, as for start, E, G, E, E, G, E, E, G, E. You're sort of going to have to see it more than I can say it, but you can see where the pattern repeats itself and gets that melody. And the final one isn't an E and E, it's an E and D. Because I don't want that to be such a strong note in the melody, because the E's are the usual ones. If I put in a D, it keeps the rhythm going, but it doesn't detract from what we're trying to do by keeping the feeling of Jingle Bells in the piece. So you might want to try playing that in the right hand quite a few times before you include the left. And the left has got the octave, so we're starting on the C as per usual, and then jumping up to C and G to fill in the gaps. And every time we get the double E's in the right hand, we're doubling up in the left hand. Oh. See how that works? And then when we get to the same idea, but we're going to move our right hand up to G, C and G. And then back down to E, G and C. And you can see I'm always moving between the second and thumb on the E's and the G's. So it goes. Because it's always moving, it's trying to make it sound as full as possible. that left hand always repeats the same melodies, and it's always coming together with the two E's. Now when we move to the F, it's the same idea, but F, A and F, and the left hand's doing the same pattern as well. So we're going from octaves Fs to F and C. Down to the C in the left hand, while we play the same F in the right to get that clashy note that we know and love. As our right hand comes back down to the E's and the G's that we played before. Now we get to the, which is of course G in the left hand. And then when we play that, we're going to shift our hand to play two D's with a G instead. So E, G, E, D, G, D. So the melody is always being played by the octaves. And then in this gap before we get to the next part, we've got a really rapid, I think a G Mixolydian scale, which basically means playing all of the white notes starting on G and ending on G for 2 octaves. If my hands weren't too cold. And that leads us on to the second part. So practice that so you can do it really fast. It's not too bad, it needs to be a bit smoother. I'm going to blame the cold hands again, and that will lead into part 2. So let's see if I can play part 1 to lead into that. Pretend that was really smooth. Believe me, it took me 2.5 hours to play this for the recording, so it's hard. For me, anyway. I know there are people who can play this far better, but I'm sure you'll learn this really quickly. So that does a really rapid G major scale, which then leads you into playing exactly what you played at the start in the right hand, but an octave higher. And then I forgot that the ending's meant to happen. So it goes. And then we've got the G's. So G, B, G and G. G, B and F. G, B and D. And then E, G and C. And sort of like broken chord arpeggio sort of style. We move down between various patterns of C, G and E down the piano until we get to the bottom, and finally a C major chord of C, E, G and C to finish. Okay, so let me see if I can do that last part again, the second half of the song. Slow it down. I think I played that ending better than the actual video. And the end chord. If you've made it to the end of this video, I am truly impressed. There were so many notes going on, so many different variations of Jingle Bells, and realistically, you could tell that I was losing my mind going through, starting from the basics, going all the way to level 10, and trying to add these decorations and remember what I'd written, having not written anything down. It was a bit problematic. But if you would like some written version of anything that I've played today, please let me know in the comments what level you would like, and I will endeavour to get that sorted prior to Christmas. But for now, all I can say is if you enjoyed this and you want to see more, make sure you're subscribed, like the video if it helped you, and comment below if you would like to see more of this sort of tutorial. Have a good one.